I've been meaning to make this video for a really long time. PlayStation 4 Pro versus the Xbox One X. In my personal opinion, the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro cater to a specific area of fans when it comes to gaming. Those that really care about graphics and that sort of thing, and people that are upgrading to 4K TVs. There's not a massive amount of them, but over time, that's going to increase. This video is going to basically tell you the thoughts of both. I've had both for a while now, PS4 Pro more so, a bit longer, so I've seen it how it works over time. I've got to say straight away, the Xbox One X has added support for older games much better and much quicker than the PS4 Pro did. But that doesn't mean the Xbox One X is the better console straight away, because the PS4 Pro probably still has more support because of how much older it is. Before we dive in, I want to talk about the one major elephant in the room. Despite both of these consoles being labeled as 4K, in Microsoft's case currently true 4K, and then on PlayStation it's just dynamic 4K now, which, to be fair, at the beginning they didn't do that. And that's what it is. What these companies mean by dynamic 4K is that the resolution isn't always 4K. Most of the time, it probably isn't. What these consoles do is something called checkerboard rendering. Now, this rendering method is pretty much just taking a slightly better resolution image. So, for example, 1440p or 1600p, and stretching that to 4K using checkerboard rendering. I know Digital Foundry, but if you want to look more into that, you can go check out Digital Foundry videos and that sort of thing. But I have some examples of how bad checkerboard rendering can be in this video, so look out for those. Despite this video being 4K 60 FPS, many things won't be 4K 60 FPS. For example, my feed right here is going to be 1080p 60 FPS. But most of these games I'm going to show you are not rendered at 4K. They are output at 4K, but they are not rendered at 4K, meaning they use methods such as checkerboard rendering and also dynamic resolution, which means some of the textures in the distance actually change resolution depending on how much the console is under. You get the idea. The marketing for both consoles has been misleading. Without further ado, thanks to the Elgato 4K 60 Pro that I got sent. Thank you, Elgato. We're going to jump into looking at some games. Now, throughout this video, I want you guys to let me know down in the comments which game you think is on which platform, other than the exclusives, because that's bloody obvious. Horizon Zero Dawn is an interesting game because I really enjoy this game. I have yet to finish it because I've had no bloody free time recently, but it's one of the best games I have played on the PS4 Pro. On PS4 in general, or consoles in general this generation, it's a fantastic, fun game to play, but visually impressive. If not one of the most impressive games I have seen on the PlayStation so far. Lighting and the motion of the leaves and the hair and everything, it's just beautiful. Normally, I'm not one to really talk about graphics too much because it doesn't really bother me too much. Graphics in general, I don't care. It's a second afterthought. I thought The Crew at launch was a bloody one of the best games there is this generation, and it didn't really look that great, but that doesn't matter to me. But this is a video about graphics. Horizon is one of those games where you want to go on it to take pictures, and again, I'm not the type of person to go onto photo mode, but when this game is so damn beautiful and you get to kind of the top of a mountain or something and you look down and you see that beautiful valley, you're like, damn, I'm glad there's a photo mode, and I'm glad photo modes are a thing. This is a beautiful example of where it's not actually native 4K, but it looks damn good. Again, if you have a 4K TV, it's still going to benefit you. It's still going to be great. If you have a 1080p screen, it's still going to benefit you. If you're downsampling it, because it's going to look even better. Either way, you're going to get an advantage. This is possibly one of the best examples of the new power of the consoles, if you will. Some of you may not know, but I'm a huge fan of Ratchet & Clank. Not this game specifically, because this one, I mean, it's ruined the bloody format of the franchise, but let's not get into that. This game series has always looked great, kind of like a Pixar style vibe, and this game is non-different. It's absolutely beautiful, and more so now because of the fact it has 4K. HDR for this game is the bigger difference. Unfortunately, you can't actually show HDR on YouTube as far as I'm aware, and also I can't capture HDR right now. So, unfortunately, I can't show you that, but I can show you how great this game looks in 4K. I don't particularly think this is in 4K, don't get me wrong. In this video, I'm probably going to mention that things are in 4K. By that, I mean probably outputted in 4K. For the most part, I don't think any of these, except one or two, is actually native 4K. Hey, where's the bloody racing stuff? I got you, mate. Don't worry about it. GT Sport is a fantastic looking game. It's beautiful no matter what you're bloody doing. Main menus is instantly one of the most profound differences in this is just when you look at 4K in these menus, and going around the cars and the replays, they look amazing. The actual gameplay itself, personally, I think looks a little bit more dumbed down. In the actual video anyway, in the actual game, it doesn't look as big of a difference, but for some reason, it seems like it does on looking back on the footage. But the game looks great. I would actually argue that this game looks probably the best of a racer that has this 4K support 4K support on consoles right now. With the fact that adding new content over time and they're planning to support it for a long time, it reminds me of the vibe of Drive Club. I think Drive Club would have looked better in 4K. I wish I could have seen that in native 4K. That would have been insanely scrumptious, but we've got Gran Turismo Sport, and I'm okay with that. It's a good looking game, it runs really well. It actually is one of the few games on the consoles, both of them, that actually runs at 60 FPS. I haven't really noticed it drop down at all, and I'm on the quality setting. As far as I'm aware, that's a thing. I don't know if it actually changed, because I recently went from a 1080p screen to a 4K screen, and there was an option for quality or frame rate, and I chose quality, and I didn't really notice it drop down from 60, from anyway. Now, this is the new Assassin's Creed game. I have yet to jump into it, except when I was recording this video. Played a little bit of it at E3, and I was a little bit disappointed with how it looked. The textures were still 900p as far as I was aware at that point, and this was on the Xbox One X. But we're now fast forwarded into the release, and it looks pretty damn great. One of the better looking games. Now, some of the textures do seem really, really, really bad. It seems like less than 1080 kind of textures, but for the most part, the lighting and the sand, and so for the most part, things where this should be seen, not up close for the most part, they look pretty damn good, and it's one of the better case scenario games when it comes to visuals, especially when it comes to third-party games, because some third-party games don't particularly look great on the platform, but it seems like they're actually making use of the power on the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X in this case. It should seem higher compared to the base game, and that's what you want. Does it seem like 4K? I'd say it's pretty damn close, but again, some textures, not so, but one of the better case scenario games. And this is my main game coming up right now, Need for Speed Payback, and it's actually disgusting. Every video on Need for Speed Payback so far on my channel has been either on PC or super sampled down from the 14, whatever it is. I don't know what resolution it is on Need for Speed Payback. Super sampled down to 1080p and output at 1080p and captured at 1080p, because that is the only way you're going to want to play. When you start playing this game at the 4K output, it's, oh my lord, the jaggies are ridiculous everywhere. You can see it on a 1080p screen how jaggy this thing is, and this is a massive showcase of how I think checkerboard rendering can really ruin the game. If it's not checkerboard rendering, something else is massively wrong. In some cases, whole buildings will shake. In the photo mode, everything is supposed to be still. Everything is paused. Nothing's moving. But for some reason, the buildings start bloody shaking in the distance. Like, it's like aliasing. It's actually horrible. And don't even get me started on the aliasing itself. When you're driving down the road, it's horrendous. I'm not one for really talking about graphics and stuff. Personally, I don't give a damn about graphics. I've told you this in the past. But the aliasing is just like they really kind of just slapped it on and we're like, alright, that'll do, and no one actually checked it. I don't particularly know exactly why this is, but I'm going to say it's because they just tried to force it up res, and they didn't really put any aliasing, anti-aliasing on it, and the checkerboard rendering makes the buildings and everything just jag and look all really, really weird. But that shows you how kind of bad a case scenario can be on a game. Personally, I actually bump down the resolution to 1080 whenever I play that game. It's actually worth doing that on some games, and I don't imagine Need for Speed is the only one to do this, but it's the only one I've played that actually does this. I imagine there's quite a few games that do it, and one of the most popular games is Call of Duty, and I've got it, so I've obviously got to show. Call of Duty looks better in the 4K output, but I don't particularly see much point in it. I mean, things are a little bit sharper. Call of Duty is not a bad case scenario, but in general, the textures always look kind of stretched and rushed in a Call of Duty game, because let's face it, this game was probably rushed. They were like, oh no, people don't want the jetpacky things, rush. It's a decent looking game, but if you look close enough, it actually looks hideous. one of the worst textured games ever. And I think this is an easy game to run on PC. You wouldn't need very much power to run this at a higher resolution. In fact, Call of Duty has been on the same engine for bloody years, so I don't particularly think it really needs much power in the slightest. It's why the game has always been able to do 1080p 60 FPS on every single bloody game, except later in the last generation. But the last generation's 5 years ago now, almost. I'm a little bit disappointed by how it looks in the texture department. I mean, everything else looks better. Everything seems to go cooler. I don't know, it looks nice, but when you look closer, And then if you're a type of person that's buying the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X, you're looking for that graphic boost. That's why you're buying the console, for Christ's sake. I keep wanting to say, if that doesn't bother you, well, all power to you. But at the same time, if you're buying a console that has more power to make it look better, why the hell does it not look that much better, if you know what I mean? And this is the case on a lot of games. You're expecting a big jump, and you don't get a big jump. It seems like bloody years ago since Watch Dogs came out, but that was another one I wanted to jump in, because in fact it was actually one of the original games to get PS4 Pro support. I remember when the update came out to give it PS4 Pro support, and it looked better. Did it look massively better? I don't think so. I don't even remember the resolution it ran at. It definitely wasn't 4K. It was probably something like 1440 and then upsampled using checkerboard or something like that. But it was one early Ubisoft attempt at actually doing this 4K-ness, and later on you're going to see another Ubisoft game which actually did it really well. So it shows that Ubisoft is improving upon this, and I'm hoping some other games do so too. I wanted to include this because it's just showing the natural progression, the fact that developers are now figuring out how to use it better and making much more use of the platform, because again, earlier on, there was only one of the platforms. Now there's two of them, and a big kind of following behind these and more users behind this, so it makes sense to actually put a little bit more effort into your games. But again, not that this game looks bad at any stretch, it actually improved it quite a bit, but it was an early attempt at doing so. And from what I somewhat remember, early around the beginning of PS4 Pro and Xbox One X support, more so PS4 Pro because that was the earlier one, some games actually ran worse, like kind of running wise. Obviously the graphics were improved and it just ran slower because of that. And as I said, we've seen an improvement all the way through. Forza Motorsport 7, which was actually the only game that really pushed out or came out of the gate and saying, look, for Xbox One, come get it. That is literally the only game that they actually managed to push out and be like, this is our launch game for the year. In fact, I think it was actually one of the only exclusives they've had this year. But nonetheless, it's a decent one. It looks damn good. It's actually native 4K in this case, and in this case I'm gonna say that it really doesn't seem to pop too much compared to what I've played on PC. When you play games in high resolution on PC, I saw a major difference compared to from 1080p to 1440p. That's not as big a jump from 1080p to 4K, but for some reason on PC, games just look so much better when you go from 1080 to 1440 than when you go on the consoles from 1080 to 4K. It doesn't look like this thing is actually native 4K. I can't put my finger on exactly what's wrong with the visuals of this game. Not that it looks bad in any way. It looks stunning, but I personally think that there's just something missing about this. HDR massively improves the game. It looked really washed out otherwise on some of the recordings. On the actual gameplay of itself, it didn't look too washed out, but on the actual capturing of all of the captures I'm doing have not been tweaked in the slightest, because I want it to be completely fair. One cool thing that's quite nice is bit shake on this, which sounds a bit petty, I know, but if you're a graphics type of person and you're watching this video and you're like, which one do I get? Well, there's your answer. If you want shaky bits, you go with Forza. Just to say, for the most part throughout those clips, my wife actually drove on those. She wanted to help out, so thanks Meadow for helping. Something both consoles offer is the speed improvements on load times. You'll get like a couple of seconds faster load times, and some of the games will have higher frame rates if they're made to kind of loosely allow the use of extra power. It depends on how the game is written, but for the most part across the board you're going to see performance increases overall your 1080p games. And I have to say, again, after actually playing a lot of GTA 5 in 4K on a smaller 28-inch monitor and a 50-inch TV, playing GTA at 1080p kind of stretched to output at 4K, it doesn't look too bad. I thought it was going to look horrendous. You know, the idea of stretching an image to me is just But from my own experience, all I really noticed was the fact that the frame rate wasn't 20 frames per second like it is on the base consoles now. You're not really going to see graphic improvements on games that haven't been updated to support them, but you are going to see like less pop-in, for example. So technically, I guess you could. But overall, you want to know the verdict. The verdict from the pants. Now, let's jump into straight away saying that if you're really looking into either PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, and you have an Xbox One or you have a PS4, consider maybe getting the other one. If you get the other one, you get to try out the exclusives on the other platform, and if you really like it, then you can switch. But one thing to consider, I would personally put this one in priority, is that most of my friends play on the PlayStation 4. So I would buy a PS4 Pro over an Xbox One X because I don't care about graphics. But again, if you are buying one of these consoles, graphics is on your mind. But that's the two main things, I think. Try something new if you have the option to do so. You can still keep your PS4 and have an Xbox One X to try out Xbox games in high resolution. If you really want to, you can buy third-party games on your Xbox One X. And I think if those two things don't really matter to you, push them out the window, okay? And it matters to you price-wise. I'm talking bang for buck. I'm not just talking which is the cheaper. Well, it's both. It's the PS4 Pro. The difference in price in both consoles is big. And the difference is the fact that PS4 Pro came out much earlier and the Xbox One X has just come out. Over time, the prices are going to start to kind of come down on both, and for the PS4 Pro, they have. In fact, you can get a PS4 Pro for about £300 right now, just under $299. And if you really, really want a 4K console that does some 4K, because in some cases it does some 4K, I'm going to have to recommend the PS4 Pro over the Xbox One X, because the Xbox One X is £150 more expensive, and you still do not get native 4K on all games. And to me, that's a bit silly. Microsoft decided to go for a higher price point, which I get. It is technically the most powerful console. But from the experience that I've had thus far, playing all the games they gave me a whole stack of games. Personally, I think if you're looking to buy an Xbox One X right now, wait. If you really want one, wait. You're not missing out on much in the slightest. You're really not. If visuals above all else is what you're after, get a PC. Build a PC. Build one on a configurator for around a little bit more than an Xbox One X, and you're going to get a much more stable quality experience. 1440p on a PC, for the most part, in my experience, from what I play on PC, looks better than a lot of 4K games on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. And I've seen people mention the fact that you can play Xbox One X games on PC now. Exclusives-wise, you can play all of the new exclusives on PC. We're talking Horizon, Motorsport, whatever you can think of. I can't think of any more exclusive than that, but you can play them on PC now. You do not need an Xbox One to be able to buy the games on PC and play them on PC, which is a really nice thing. It does mean you have to use the horrible Windows Store, but you can still play them. If you have a PS4 Pro and a PC that's capable, then you can play all the exclusives. It's just something to consider, but again, personally, mainly because of the price. If the prices were exactly the same, I'd say the Xbox One X is the one to go for. If you can find both for the same price, get the One X if you're looking for graphics. If you're looking for what your friends are playing on, you already know the damn answer. Why are you watching the video? But thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down in the comments, have you bought any of the new Pro or X consoles? I'd love to know. But other than that, be sure to smash like, subscribe if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next one. Until next time, guys, peace.